Hi guys and welcome back. We've gone over the timeline, so let's continue and see how we can start animating. I've opened up a scene which you already have. Currently, we are looking at our scene from the perspective camera mode, where we can move around the object and see it from different angles. In order to do that, we can use a few combinations of one keyboard button and one mouse button. By holding down Alt and left-clicking and dragging the mouse around, we orbit the scene. By holding down Alt and right-clicking and dragging, we can zoom in and out. By holding down Alt and the middle mouse button while moving the mouse, we can pan the scene. We also have an option to look at our scene from different camera modes. If we press the spacebar, our viewport gets divided into 4 sections. We have a top view of our scene, perspective, which we've already tried, front view, and side view. If you want to enter any of these modes, position your cursor on the camera view you want and press spacebar again. The first thing we should do is to position our cube on the ground, because right now we can see that its body is in the middle of our grid and not on top of it. So let's go back to the perspective mode. Now select the cube and press W to enter an object moving mode. You can also select a Move tool right here on the left side of the screen if you ever forget a shortcut for that. Below it, we also have a Rotation tool and Scale tool. For now, let's choose a Move tool. By clicking and dragging the green arrow, we'll move our object up. By clicking and dragging the blue arrow, we can position our cube on the left side of our scene. To make sure that our cube is placed on the ground, we can look from the front view or the side view and check. Let's zoom in. I can see that my cube is still a little bit floating because this thicker horizontal line in the orthographic mode is marking the ground, and my cube is still a little bit above it. So let's fix that. Now that we've placed our cube at its starting position, we can save it in our timeline. Let's set up our animation length and make sure that we are in the first frame. Now I can select my cube and hit the S key to create a keyframe. The keyframes show in my timeline where I've saved a position of my object, and they are marked as a red tick. So, in frame 1, I've saved a position of my cube being on the left side of my screen. Before continuing on, we should turn on an auto key option, which is here in the right corner next to our timeline preferences. The auto keying is turned on when the button is red. So now if we go to another frame, let's say the last one, and move the cube to the right side of the screen, Maya will save that new position of our object automatically and create a keyframe for us. This auto key option will make our work easier and faster, but it won't work until we set our first key by hand. If I delete all my keyframes and now move the object, you can see that Maya is no longer saving our cube's position in the timeline even though auto keying is still turned on. So don't forget that we need to save the first pose by hand. If I'm not using auto key and move the cube, for example, up in the air, Maya won't create a keyframe. And if I scrub the animation, I can see that my cube stays on the ground. So my new position was not saved. So if I go to frame 20 and move the cube, I have to remember to press the S key and set a keyframe by hand. Okay, we've saved our first and last position of the cube in our animation. These two poses are called the key poses because they're the most important ones. These poses are the ones that describe our main action. The cube is traveling from left to right. If I press play, you can see how the cube is traveling from the left side of the screen to the right in 48 frames. Right now, our animation looks a bit boring, so let's add some rotation to it. To enter an object rotation mode, hit E or select a rotation tool here, which I showed you before. Let's rotate our cube 360 degrees. To make sure that our cube rotates 360 degrees, we can take a look now at our channel box, which is up here in the top right corner. Our channel box has a little pCube1, which indicates that we have selected our cube and we are looking at its channels. Then we have a list of all the channels that we can edit for translation, rotation, and scale of the object. If translation and rotation values would be 0, our object would go to its initial state. Our initial scale values, though, should be set to 1. If we changed them to 0, our object would disappear. Also, a quick note here. If you want to set more than one of the channels to the same value, a quick way to do that is to click and drag the mouse to select your channels, then release the mouse and enter your desired value in the last channel. When you hit Enter, all the selected channels will receive the same value. Since I set all the translation and rotation channels to 0, we can see that the cube is now back to its original place in the scene, which is the center. Okay, let's undo that. And now, in our rotation X channel, we can see that my cube was rotated a little bit over 360. So we can type in the exact value if we desire to be precise. If we look at our channels, we can see that they each have a red bar, but only the translation Z and rotation X has it in a really bright red color. A bright red bar means that you have a saved key for that specific channel on your current frame, and a pale red bar means that the channel has a key but in some other frame. If we take a look at our first frame, all our cube's channels are in a bright red color. It's because we saved our cube's position by hand by pressing the S key, which saves all of our selected object's channel values. And on the last frame, we didn't set a key. Maya's auto key option did that for us, and so it saved only those channels which we moved. Usually, when we want to have a key pose, we want to save all of its channels' values because we want our object to have a very specific value at that exact frame in our animation. And as I've mentioned before, our poses on the first and the last frames of our animation are the key poses, so we should press the S key on our last frame as well to make sure that we have saved all the information about our object in that frame. Now, let's play our animation. We can see our cube is going from left to right and rotating. It doesn't look great. It's because we only have 2 keyframes, and Maya is trying its best to calculate our object's movement in between those keyframes. But it's not enough. We need to specify how we want our object to reach its destination from its previous pose. For example, if we want our object to fly across the screen and to go up and then fall before reaching its final pose, we need to add an in-between pose, or also known as a breakdown pose. Let's go to the frame 24 and lift our cube. Now you see our animation looks way different. Since we have more than 2 keys, we can now talk about our playback controls in more detail. we've already figured out that this is our play and stop animation buttons. The other arrow on the left lets us play our animation backwards. These arrows with a little line on them will jump from one keyframe to another. And these buttons will go from frame to frame. And finally, the buttons on the far left and far right jump from the beginning to the end of our animation. So, the first and last frames on your timeline. You can also use hotkeys. By pressing period or comma keys, you can jump between keyframes. Or, by holding down Alt and pressing period or comma keys, you can go frame by frame. All right, that's going to be it for this lecture, folks. Coming up in the next lecture, we're going to open up our graph editor and learn how to use it to refine our work. I'll see you guys in the next video.